and welcome to the Non-Inkables channel. I was going to say podcast. Hello and welcome to the Non-Inkables channel. This video is going to be a recap of the Lorecast, the official Disney Lorecast that happened on June 12th, which was yesterday. I thought I was going to miss most of it because my daughter had a doctor's appointment, but I ended up being able to catch a significant part of it thanks to the technical issues. So they also did a little summary at the end, and I think that was very helpful. They showed the new trailer, and so we will be talking about all the new product that is coming, the new trailer, and all the new cards that they revealed. So let's start with the trailer. I did watch this on 0.25 speed just to see if there were any things that might be missed. So if you want to watch the trailer, I will link it below. And also I will kind of just talk about what happens during it. Okay, so it starts off with like this party celebration scene. There are fireworks and there's a Ferris wheel in the background. You see Bruni, the little fire salamander from Frozen, on a banner. And then kind of floating in the wind, you see these like different colored leaves, which gives me very much Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas vibes, like when she's singing Colors of the Wind with John Smith. And there's like the wind and then like the different colored leaves. I think it looks similar to that. So I don't know if that means we'll be getting some Pocahontas in this set or not, but we will see. And then you see Prince Naveen in the foreground playing his little ukulele. And there's like an old couple dancing in the background. And then there's what looks like maybe like a pirate from Peter Pan with this other man. And then there's like another group of two men. And then it kind of just zooms in onto one of the tents in the celebration. So it's like this big, I would say almost like circus tent looking tent. And you see Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And then you see Goofy, who's slipping while he's carrying a tray of cupcakes. And then you see Mickey, and she's at a table that has one of those like fancy afternoon tea trays that's like 3 levels and has cupcakes and sandwiches. And then it goes to Mickey, who is like launching, he's basically like squeezing a ketchup bottle, and he's also blocking the flying food that's coming towards him with a silver platter, and there's like a green ice cream cone that's hitting it. And then kind of outside of that tent, you see Donald, who is aiming a dart, and Daisy in the background, who's holding a big giant teddy bear, which I assume Donald won for her. And then it kind of zooms into a board with all the balloons there, a la Circus Circus and I guess other fairs. And then one of the balloons gets popped, and then it kind of like, in the popping of the balloon, it reveals a different scene, which is Hercules arm wrestling Hades. And it looks like it's Hercules from the Divine Hero card. And then it's just Hades with this classic blue hair, which I think he appears in many cards like that. And in the air around them, you see all these like little orbs. So there's like circle ones, there's cylinder ones, and then they have like this gold, like if this is the orb, there's like gold things wrapped around like that. And then it looks like Hercules wins the arm wrestle. And then you see past that, it goes to a stage where there is the gazelle from Zootopia. And I looked it up. Her name is just Gazelle singing. And she is voiced by Shakira. And in the movie Zootopia, she sings Try Everything. Great song. I would love to see more Zootopia stuff. And then kind of in the crowd and around her, there's more of these like orb things, which I think are just like a source of decoration / light. And then in the background of the stage that she's performing on, you see Martin, one of the Illumineers, and he is looking very, very nervous. And Martin, if you don't remember, he's the Illumineer where his ink caster looks like a guitar. And then it pans to kind of like coming from behind the stage. So you see a gazelle, and then in the audience, you see Vanellope, and she is clapping along all happily, and then all of a sudden something like kind of to the side of her just falls from the sky and crashes right outside the tents. And it looks to be a piece of the Great Illuminary. And then if you look at the Illuminary, it looks a little like not good, like run down. And then you see Vanellope, and she looks to Ralph like, did you do this? And that kind of like accusing face. And then Ralph is just like, it wasn't me. And then it kind of like pans past them, and then some fireworks go off that are pixelated, which is fun, a fun nod to the movie. And then it pans to Merlin, who's in a tent, and then he comes out of the tent, and then a piece of rock falls on his head. And then he has like this big old amulet thing on his, like a big old stone on his hat. And then these like white threads kind of like swirl out of it. And then it like shows this picture of this amulet necklace thing that has the amber ink symbol. And then that symbol morphs into the Great Illusionary, like in its heyday, I suppose, where it looks like all shiny and new. And then that image morphs into what the Great Illuminary looks like now, which is not nice. And then Merlin points to the foreground. I assume he's pointing to the Great Illuminary, but it's not super clear. And then the three Illumineers are next to him. So there's Venturo, who is kind of like giving side eye / making eye contact with him. And then there's Martin, who is looking like this. And then there's Shanze, who is kind of just looking off into the distance. And then it zooms in on the Great Illuminary, which seems to have like this greenish glow color. And then it cuts to like this big ol' eye. And as it zooms out, you find out that it's Basil, the detective's eye, through a magnifying glass. And then it pans out and you see like Basil is in the Great Illuminary with the three Illumineers, and they are all looking around. So you have Venturo on the stairs. Shanze is looking at like this big old orb thing that's suspended over, like, I don't know, it looks like a pensive. And then there's Martin, who's just kind of like thinking. And then there's a shot of Basil walking past, and he's like blurry. And in the background, you see a archway that is being guarded by Kronk and Sleepy. And then through the archway, you see in this glowing orb is the Hexwell crown, which was introduced in the Illumineer's quest. And it's one of the sources of power that Ursula in Illumineer's quest is trying to get. So she's trying to get the trident and the crown together, which will make her unstoppable. And then Martin, you see Martin's feet walk in the front of the shot, and then Kronk looks all of a sudden surprised, like he saw something shocking. And then the next scene is you see Basil on the floor, and then he knocks twice on the floor. And then the floor, like before it was like this circle with this like flower design, it like breaks off, and then all the little flower petals basically become stairs, like a spiral staircase that goes down. Martin and Basil go down the stairs and they end up in like what looks to be a library. And then on the desk, they see that amber amulet that Merlin saw in his vision, and it starts glowing. And on the desk also you see some books, and there looks to be like a purple chest on the desk. And then Martin picks up the amulet, and you can see in the background of the doorway where they're at that Kronk is like peeking through the doorway. And then the camera kind of zooms back up the stairs and to the Hexwell crown into that room. And then around the Hexwell crown, so the Hexwell crown is in this like big orb, and it has like gold branches around it, kind of like those little light ones in the beginning of the trailer. And then there's also these little like circle things all around that are just floating and like shooting lasers. And then there's another orb in the background, but you can't tell what's in it. And then the image fades and it goes back to like the outside view of the Great Illuminary. And then it pans down where the celebrations are continuing. And there's a spotlight that appears on the stage. So nobody's on the stage, just a spotlight. And then it's a scene of Shanze pushing Martin onto the stage into the spotlight. And he looks super, super, super nervous to be performing. It reminds me of that scene in Coco where Miguel sings El Poco Loco, where he looks super nervous. And so the amber amulet that he just got, he's wearing it around his neck. It starts to glow, and then he raises his arm and like psh, strums a chord, and then the crowd goes wild. So then you see in the crowd, there's Vanellope, who is on top of Wreck-It Ralph's shoulder, and then they're standing next to Venturo, who's standing next to Merlin, and everybody is cheering. There's confetti, there's fireworks. Then it pans up into the sky where you just see fireworks going off, and then the Shimmering Skies logo appears. So that is what set 5 is called, Shimmering Skies. So that is the trailer. And next, let's talk about the products. Okay, so this is the logo of the new set 5 Shimmering Skies. Looks very happy. So there will be 2 starter decks. There is a emerald steel one that has Scar and Kronk, and then an amber and a ruby amethyst one featuring Elsa and Wreck-It Ralph. And we'll talk about those cards later because they are also some of the cards that were revealed. There's also the standard booster box. I do like that they picked Vanellope, who is super cute, Donald, and then Maui as the characters for it. I'm glad there's not like another Sisu. I feel like Sisu has been featured very prominently despite, I don't know, I don't feel like she's that popular of a character. but maybe that's just my personal bias. There is a new thing. So instead of the gift set, there is what is called Gateway, and it is supposed to be a intro to Lorcana. So a way for people to learn how to play Lorcana. And I believe you start with a 40 card deck, and then as you learn more, you add to the deck. So I think this is very exciting. I am always trying to bring people into Lorcana to play, because then I'll have more people to play with, especially now that Pixelborn is going to be discontinued. So really the only way to play is to play in person, unless you use like a webcam thing, which we probably will do eventually, but I feel like that's a little hard to figure out. And it looks like it comes with a big old play mat, which looks better than the play mats that have come out with their gift sets so far, because those have just been like half mats where your card is like partially on there, partially not on there. And it looks like it starts you off in Amber Amethyst or Ruby Sapphire. So maybe you start learning a ramp deck. That would be interesting. And then maybe just a character deck. So I'm looking forward to that. Super excited. And then next is the Trove. So standard 8 booster packs, lore counter, dice. And then I'm happy that the dividers are ink colors once again, because the rarity thing, I don't think that went off very well, because nobody is sorting their cards by rarity. And so I think these will be much more useful, and I'll probably buy more because I want the dividers. And yeah, next we have the sleeves. So there's Heroic Outlaw Aladdin, there's Tiana, so both from previous sets. And you can get sleeves that look like the back of the card. So that's pretty cool. I think that's really exciting, because sometimes I feel like when I put my cards into sleeves, I'm like, oh, but I don't get to see like the original card artwork, what it was made for, you know? So that's exciting. You can sleeve it, it'll still be the same card. Although I think the official Lorcana sleeves are paper. They feel like paper, and so the quality is not great. But maybe they will have improved. And then there's 2 playmats. So the one is Look at This Family, and then one is Belle. So they're both from this set. I really do like that Belle card, and that is one of the cards that I thought should have been an enchanted card because it looks so good. But I'm happy that they're making it into a playmat. It would be cool if you could also buy foiled playmats, but I think maybe they are keeping those for prizes for set challenges, it seems. We did get a Rapunzel playmat from this set, and I am gonna try and foil it myself. In that I'm gonna use like one of those gold pens, like a Sharpie, but like more artsy, I guess, and then try to just outline stuff in gold. We'll see how that goes. I will maybe try to record that just for fun. Then we have these binders for the cards. So they each hold 252 cards, so much bigger than the ones they had before. The like Stitch and Maleficent ones that I think they hold like 64 cards, but they hold the oversized cards from the gift sets. So the fact that they're releasing this makes me think maybe they are not going to release any more like oversized cards with gift sets. I don't know, which is kind of a bummer because we already have like so many. And there's both the version that looks like the card back, and then the version that has one character from each ink color, which I think is really cool because it mirrors kind of the mat that they had for that UK Expo that also had one character for each ink color. And then let's get into cards. Okay, so the major big franchise that they added to the set was Wreck-It Ralph, a movie that I love. I just think it's so cute. So the first character is Vanellope von Schweetz. She is the main character in Wreck-It Ralph, and she is voiced by Sarah Silverman. So there's this card, which is a 1-cost inkable card, 2/2, super standard, quest for 1 lore. And then there's this new little phrase down here of racer. So that's a new categorization. So I wonder if there's going to be some very cool racer synergy going on. Her card is super cute, and her flavor text is, look, the code may say I'm a princess, but I know who I really am. And in the story, she is not allowed to race because they say that she's a glitch. And really, spoiler alert, is like the main character of the race. And the glitch is like actually a feature for her. Then we also have this card, 4-cost uninkable card, 3/3, quest for 2, Vanellope von Schweetz random roster racer. This has Rush, and it has the ability of Pixelexia. When you play this character, she gains evasive until the start of your next turn. So Super effective, I think, to attack, say, Pegasus or Diablo because of both the rush and the evasiveness. I love this card. I love that she's zooming. I love that, like, next to her head, there's like these streaks to show how fast she's going because she's a big ol' racer. Next, we have Taffeta, Mutton Fudge. The names of the racers are just hilarious. They like kind of mention them in the movie, mainly just like Taffeta, I think. I'd have to rewatch the movie and see, but to get like their full names, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize they were so interesting. So this is a 2-cost inkable card, 2/2 strength, quest for 2, which is pretty big. And her flavor text is, there's not a glimmer that can keep up with me. You might as well quit now. And she's kind of like the mean girl in the movie. And in the background of this, you can see King Candy, who is the, spoiler alert, surprise villain in the movie. And we will talk about him when we get to his card. Then we have this other Taffeta card, so 1-cost inkable, 1/2, quest for 1, and she has the ability Showstopper. When you play this character, if you have a location in play, each opponent loses 1 lore. So I'm guessing most likely it'll be like, I was gonna say, like Super Mario, like Mario Kart, where you're racing in different locations. And so you probably want a lot of racers and a lot of locations, and there's probably good synergy there. And her flavor text is never lose sight of where you're going, 2nd place. Yeah, fighting words. She has good lines. Next, we have Taffeta Mutton Fudge Sour Speedster. 4-cost inkable card, 3/3, shifts for 2. It's a Floodborn card, quest for 1, and her ability New Roster. Once per turn, when this character moves to a location, gain 2 lore. So again, location heavy racing deck. And then we have Rancis Fluggerbutter. Also, fantastic name. 4-cost inkable card, 4/4, chocolate charger. Vanilla card, quest for 1, and it says ingredients: butter, sugar, unsweetened chocolate, vanilla, and arrogance. I think it's interesting. I'm not a big baker, so I don't understand why it's both unsweetened chocolate and then you add sugar, but I guess maybe for the chemistry or so that the chocolate part is, the chocolate chip part, I assume, is unsweetened. But she also looks like she's wearing a Reese's peanut butter cup on her head. Super cool. And then we have Snowana Rainbow, a cool competitor, 3-cost uninkable card, 2/4, has rush, quest for 1. When it comes to racing, she never gets cold feet. I do like that it at least has some, like, its stat line is 2/4 as opposed to like 1/3 or 2/2. So I think it would survive a lot of challenges and also can actually attack, because we have gotten rush cards in the past where they're like a 1/3, and I see those cards and I just think, what is the point of rushing for 1 damage? If I'm going to rush, I want to like actually do some hardcore damage. All right. And then next we have Wreck-It Ralph, Demolition Dude, 3-cost inkable card, 1/4. His ability is Refreshing Break. Whenever you're ready, this character gain 1 lore for each 1 damage on him. So this, I think, reminds me of that Donald Duck legendary card, where you get lore based on how much damage he has as well. And then next we have Turbo, Royal Hack. So in the spoilers, in the movie, King Candy rules over the game that Vanellope von Schweetz is in. And he is the one who tells Ralph, like, hey, if she competes, she's going to die because she's a glitch. She shouldn't be here. And what actually happened is King Candy is Turbo, who used to be in a different game that shut down. And he basically snuck out of his game and went into Vanellope's game and then rewrote the code so that everybody forgot who she was, which is the main character. And he basically made himself the overlord of that game. And when they're in the ending scene, when they're racing, as they're racing, he glitches and you can see that he's Turbo. And so this is a 2-cost uninkable card, 2/3, quest for 1, has rush, and then has game jump. This character also counts as being named King Candy for shift, which makes sense because he is also King Candy. And then there is 1 location from this set, Badanon Villain Support Center. So Ralph ends up going here because he is like upset about being the villain and how he's always the villain in his game and he doesn't want to be the villain anymore. He just wants to, what if he's the good guy, you know? And so it's like a support group. And this card is a 3-cost inkable card, 2 to move characters there, 7 willpower. And the ability is there's no one I'd rather be than me. So villain characters gain exert, pay 3 ink, play a character with the same name as this character for free while here, and then this location gains 1 lore passively. I think that is kind of an expensive ability, although if you're going to play a villain character that costs, say, like 6 ink or something, it could be a deal. So essentially you're paying 3 ink to play something with the same name. So you could start off with a little villain character and then use this to do a more expensive one. Although it costs 2 to move here and then 3 to do the ability. So you would have to be switching it out for something that probably costs at least 5 for it to be an even trade, unless the big villain that you're switching to has some sort of ability when you play them. Otherwise, it seems like it's not worth it. Another thing that somebody pointed out on Instagram, I don't remember specifically who it was, I think it was Inkborn Heroes, is that the Vanellope von Schweetz card, the first one is not, it's numbered very low. So her name starts with a V, so she should be at the end of Amber, which is usually like for characters around like end of 20, like late 29s, like late 20s. But her number is only 6. So maybe it's because she glitches and so she just skips ahead or something, but it's weird. It doesn't make sense. And then, okay, next, new friend. So this is the Merlin that we see in the trailer. So you see the like white swirl stuff coming out of his big ol' hat, amulet, jewel thing. And this is Merlin Intellectual Visionary. He is a 6-cost uninkable card, 3/7, quest for 2, Floodborn, so he shifts, legendary card, and he has the ability Overdevelop Brain. When you play this character, if you use shift to play him, you may search your deck for any card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this is similar to Alma's ability in set 4, except she could only look for magicals, whereas this one looks for anything, and also it doesn't have to be a character. So that's a super cool ability. And I like that's called Overdevelop Brain, because there's also the card that's Develop Your Brain, where you look at 2 cards, you put 1 in your hand, 1 back into the deck. Whereas this one, it's overdeveloped, so you get to look at the whole deck. Next, we have this Lion King card, Scar, Vengeful Lion. He is a 4-cost inkable card for 2. He is in Emerald. He has Ward, such as many Emerald characters annoyingly have, mainly Bucky and Prince John. And he quests for 1, and his ability is Life's Not Fair, Is It? Which I think he says to Simba. No, he says it to the mouse that he catches in the beginning. And its ability is whenever one of your characters challenges a damaged character, you may draw a card. So I think this is a pretty good card because 1, it has Ward, 2, it's inkable, and 3, it lets Emerald draw cards, which Emerald does not have a lot of card drawing things unless you are playing Diablo or Prince John. Next, we have this super awesome card, Kronk, which I am I love Emperor's New Groove, and I've decided that one of the videos I'm going to be posting next is going to be an Emperor's New Groove, so I'm going to add this card in, obviously. So this is Kronk, Head of Security, Floodborn, 7-cost, uninkable card, 6/6, so super strong. Quest for 1, and he has the ability, Are You on the List? During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play a character with cost 5 or less for free. So that is, it kind of reminds me of the card Just in Time, which I think is an action from set 1 that lets you play a character with 5 costs or less for the cost of that card, which is 3. A little bit like that. But the art on this is awesome. I hope they make this an enchanted card. He looks like he's leaning on the lever from the movie where Yzma's like, pull the lever, Kronk. And then she falls into a pinch. She goes, wrong lever. And then she comes out and there's like an alligator on her ankle, which she kicks. And she's like, I don't even know why we have that lever. And then he pulls the right lever and they go down the roller coaster into the lab. And then similar thing happens with Cusco, where he's like, why does she even have that lever? So it looks like he's leaning on one of those levers. And his outfit is just awesome. And he looks so cool and not at all derpy. Like, not the himbo he is in the movie. He looks very smart. Which kind of actually reminds me of the Sapphire card for Gaston, where he's an intellectual and he has like a chalkboard behind him and is doing maths, as the British would say. Next, on to Robin Hood, there is a Prince John card. So this is a 4-cost inkable card, Prince John Gold Lover, 3/4. He quests for one, and his ability is Beautiful, Lovely Taxes. You can exert him and play an item for free from your hand or discard. So that's awesome. With cost 5 or less for free, exerted. So this will let you play pretty much all of the items, I think, except for Lucky Dime. That is the only item that it does not cover. And there are 2 versions of this card. So this is the card that comes in with all the other booster packs, blah, blah, blah. And then there's this like special edition card that you can only get if it's a promo card, and you can only get it in the Villainous game. So Disney Ravensburger has a separate game called Villainous that's like a board card game thing. And this will be in the new set for Villainous. And Villainous has like tons of expansion packs. So I was looking into this because, like, do I want to play this game too? And now, because this is the only way to get this promo card, I probably will just buy one. It's fantastic marketing, totally worked on me. And it's completely foiled like the promo cards are. And there's like a Marvel Villainous, there's a Star Wars Villainous, and it starts with like just the villain characters like Maleficent. I think Frollo is in there, Hades. Frollo, speaking of Hunchback from Notre Dame, I really want to be in Lorcana, but it's so dark. The movie is so dark. Anyways, so there will be 2 versions of this card. This promo version exists only in the Villainous game that you can buy, but it works in Lorcana. It's just the art, yes, is in the Villainous style. And so it's like tying their franchises together. And then next we have You're Welcome. So Maui from Moana, 4-cost inkable card. It is an action song, and it allows you to shuffle chosen character, item, or location into their player's deck. That player draws 2 cards. So kind of like what Yzma's Scary Beyond All Reason does, she lets you shuffle a chosen character into that person's deck, and that player draws 2 cards. So this will work on items and locations. So I could see this being used to shuffle Tamatoa, to shuffle Lucky Dime. What else? Maybe McDuck Mansion, because this is like, basically you can use this as a Rise of the Titans. You can also use it on your own characters. So similar to how I've currently been using Yzma, you could use it on like a Merlin goat, and you would get the lore, you would get the 2 cards. You could use on Merlin Rabbit, you would get 3 cards. And then his flavor text is, I make everything happen. Maui, fun fact, played by The Rock in the movie, and he raps. I've seen a lot of TikTok videos recently of people going to different parks and doing chihu to Maui. So where they go like chihu and seeing if the Maui character responds. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I think it's their way of testing to see if he's a real Pacific Islander Samoan. Next, we have a card that is called the Great Illuminary Radiant Ballroom. And so this actually, interesting. So this card looks like a scene from the trailer. Like the stage looks like the stage that Gazelle is on. However, that one is definitely outside. And this looks more, if it's a Radiant Ballroom, it should be inside. And then in that one, you can definitely tell that like they're at the carnival with the tents and everything. And then the Great Illuminary is in the distance. So this is definitely a different location, but looks very similar in vibes. So this is a 3-cost inkable card, 2 cost to move there, 9 strength. So one of the strongest locations, similar in strength to McDuck Manor, also in Sapphire. And its ability is Warm Welcome. Characters with support get +1 lore and +2 willpower while here. So definitely you need to have a good support deck. So I would assume you probably need Alice, and then maybe like Olaf the carrot enthusiast. And then the flavor text says every surface glows with the joy of celebration. So I'm wondering, maybe in the trailer they were saying like, so the intro to the trailer was like, oh, set 4 Ursula was trying to take over, but thanks to all you Illumineers, the people, us who play Lorcana, we defeated Ursula, and so they're having this celebration. And I'm wondering if the Great Illuminary is like falling apart because there weren't as many Illumineers for a while, and as more of us start to play, maybe the Great Illuminary will like heal itself. I wonder if it's like one of those like clap if you believe in fairies, like Tinkerbell things. I don't know, just some thoughts. And then we have this Kristoff card, Ranger Keeper from Frozen, 9 cost uninkable card, 3, 7. Quest for 3, though, which is a lot. And he has the ability Song of the Herd. For each song card in your discard, you pay 1 ink less to play this character. So kind of like Chernobog, where you pay less ink for the amount of characters in your discard, except just for songs. So probably part of some sort of Amber Singer deck. And he also has Bodyguard. And he has 7 willpower, so that's pretty strong Bodyguard. Yeah, so I definitely think this character may get played. And then we have Bruni, Fire Salamander, 4-cost inkable card. I'm assuming he's from Frozen 2 because I haven't seen Frozen 2, so I didn't recognize him. And he does appear in the new trailer. He's like hanging out on this, like, there's like a bunch of banners that are hung. He's just kind of hanging out on top, and he has the same like derpy smile there. He is a 2/2, but evasive, and quest for 2. And when this character is banished, you may draw a card. So similar ability to Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood. And I could definitely see him being played as a counter for Diablo, which I feel like right now the meta is all about Bruno and Diablo. Then we also have the new Elsa card, the 5th Spirit, 5-cost inkable card, 2/5, quest for 1. She has both rush and evasive, so could also deal with Diablo. And she has the ability Crystallize. When you play this character, exert chosen opposing character. So definitely useful if, say, they play a Diablo, it's not exerted. You can play this, it'll exert him, and you can kill him and survive. I mean, banish him and survive. And the art on this looks really cool. It's Elsa, but I feel like her hair is a little more wild than in most depictions of her, and she's got these like floating diamond crystal things. I could also see this being an enchanted, because you know how like the little swirls that come off her arms and like the floating things just seem like they want to be holographic. And then maybe we'll have another very expensive enchanted card. Okay, next we have Donald Duck, Pie Slinger, 5-cost inkable card, 3/6. He's Floodborn, so he's shiftable. He's also a knight, which you wouldn't guess based on his outfit. He looks like a chef. And he quests for 1, he has 2 abilities. One is Humble Pie. When you play this character, if you shift to play him, each opponent loses 2 lore, which is similar to, I think, Aladdin Heroic Outlaw. And he also has Raging Duck. While an opponent has 10 or more lore, this character gains 6 attack. So I think this is definitely like maybe an anti-ramp deck card. So those cards that play Sapphire and are trying to get like Belle out to quest for her insane amount when there's, oh no, it's when they have 10 or more lore. Interesting. I read it as 10 or more ink. So when they have 10 or more lore, this character gets 6. So definitely a late game card. He gets 6 attack. I could see him maybe taking out, I mean, with that amount of attack, he could take out a McDuck Manor. He could take out the Great Illuminary. He could take out Tamatoa. He could take out a Chernobog. So yeah, could be a strong guy. And he is very, very obviously in a food fight. I like his little, what is that? Like a pan shield. And it looks like there's like a hidden Mickey on there. I guess it's not very hidden. It's very obvious Mickey on his shield. They're just like splatters of probably mustard. And he has the pie. And then I like that the meatballs, I think it's just sauce coming off of them, but they also kind of look like they're on fire and that they're slightly out of focus. I think that makes for great 3D in the image. I love the art. And then that is it. Hello and welcome to the Non-Inkables channel. I was going to say podcast. Hello and welcome to the Non-Inkables channel. This video is going to be a recap of the Lorecast, the official Disney Lorecast that happened on June 12th, which was yesterday. I thought I was going to miss most of it because my daughter had a doctor's appointment, but I ended up being able to catch a significant part of it thanks to the technical issues. So they also did a little summary at the end, and I think that was very helpful. They showed the new trailer, and so we will be talking about all the new product that is coming, the new trailer, and all the new cards that they revealed. So let's start with the trailer. I did watch this on 0.25 speed just to see if there were any things that might be missed. So if you want to watch the trailer, I will link it below. And also I will kind of just talk about what happens during it. Okay, so it starts off with like this party celebration scene. There are fireworks and there's a Ferris wheel in the background. You see Bruni, the little fire salamander, from Frozen on a banner. And then kind of floating in the wind, you see these like different colored leaves, which gives me very much Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas vibes, like when she's singing Colors of the Wind with John Smith. And there's like the wind and then like the different colored leaves. I think it looks similar to that. So I don't know if that means we'll be getting some Pocahontas in this set or not, but we will see. And then you see Prince Naveen in the foreground playing his little ukulele. And there's like an old couple dancing in the background. And then there's what looks like maybe like a pirate from Peter Pan with this other man. And then there's like another group of 2 men. And then it kind of just zooms in onto one of the tents in the celebration. So it's like this big, I would say almost like circus tent looking tent. And you see Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And then you see Goofy, who's slipping while he's carrying a tray of cupcakes. And then you see Mickey, and she's at a table that has one of those like fancy afternoon tea trays that's like 3 levels and has cupcakes and sandwiches. And then it goes to Mickey, who is like he's basically like squeezing a ketchup bottle, and he's also blocking the flying food that's coming towards him with a silver platter, and there's like a green ice cream cone that's hitting it. And then kind of outside of that tent, you see Donald, who is aiming a dart, and Daisy in the background, who's holding a big giant teddy bear, which I assume Donald won for her. And then it kind of zooms into a board with all the balloons there, a la Circus Circus and I guess other fairs. And then one of the balloons gets popped, and then it kind of like, in the popping of the balloon, it reveals a different scene, which is Hercules arm wrestling Hades. And it looks like it's Hercules from the Divine Hero card. And then it's just Hades with this classic blue hair, which I think he appears in many cards like that. And in the air around them, you see all these like little orbs. So there's like circle ones, there's cylinder ones, and then they have like this gold, like if this is the orb, there's like gold things wrapped around like that. And then it looks like Hercules wins the arm wrestle. And then you see past that, it goes to a stage where there is the gazelle from Zootopia. And I looked it up. Her name is just Gazelle singing. And she is voiced by Shakira. And in the movie Zootopia, she sings Try Everything. Great song. I would love to see more Zootopia stuff. And then kind of in the crowd and around her, there's more of these like orb things, which I think are just like a source of decoration / light. And then in the background of the stage that she's performing on, you see Martin, one of the Illumineers, and he is looking very, very nervous. And Martin, if you don't remember, he's the Illumineer where his ink caster looks like a guitar. And then it pans to kind of like coming from behind the stage. So you see a gazelle, and then in the audience, you see Vanellope, and she is clapping along all happily, and then all of a sudden something like kind of to the side of her just falls from the sky and crashes right outside the tents. And it looks to be a piece of the Great Illuminary. And then if you look at the Illuminary, it looks a little like not good, like run down. And then you see Vanellope, and she looks to Ralph like, did you do this? And that kind of like accusing face. And then Ralph is just like, it wasn't me. And then it kind of like pans past them, and then some fireworks go off that are pixelated, which is fun, a fun nod to the movie. And then it pans to Merlin, who's in a tent, and then he comes out of the tent, and then a piece of rock falls on his head. And then he has like this big old amulet thing on his, like a big old stone on his hat. And then these like white threads kind of like swirl out of it. And then it like shows this picture of this amulet necklace thing that has the amber ink symbol. And then that symbol morphs into the Great Illusionary, like in its heyday, I suppose, where it looks like all shiny and new. And then that image morphs into what the Great Illuminary looks like now, which is not nice. And then Merlin points to the foreground. I assume he's pointing to the Great Illuminary, but it's not super clear. And then the 3 Illumineers are next to him. So there's Venturo, who is kind of like giving side eye / making eye contact with him. And then there's Martin, who is looking like this. And then there's Shanzay, who is kind of just looking off into the distance. And then it zooms in on the Great Illuminary, which seems to have like this greenish glow color. And then it cuts to like this big ol' eye. And as it zooms out, you find out that it's Basil, the detective's eye, through a magnifying glass. And then it pans out, and you see like Basil is in the Great Illuminary with the 3 Illumineers, and they are all looking around. So you have You have Venturo on the stairs. Shanzay's looking at like this big old orb thing that's suspended over, like, I don't know, it looks like a pensive. And then there's Martin, who's just kind of like thinking. And then there's a shot of Basil walking past, and he's like blurry. And in the background, you see a archway that is being guarded by Kronk and Sleepy. And then through the archway, you see in this glowing orb is the Hexwell crown, which was introduced in the Illumineer's quest. And it's one of the sources of power that Ursula in Illumineer's quest is trying to get. So she's trying to get the trident and the crown together, which will make her unstoppable. And then Martin, you see Martin's feet walk in the front of the shot, and then Kronk looks all of a sudden surprised, like he saw something shocking. And then the next scene is you see Basil on the floor, and then he knocks twice on the floor, and then the floor, like before it was like this circle with this like flower design, it like breaks off, and then all the little flower petals basically become stairs, like a spiral staircase that goes down. Martin and Basil go down the stairs, and they end up in like what looks to be a library. And then on the desk, they see that amber amulet that Merlin saw in his vision, and it starts glowing. And on the desk also you see some books, and there looks to be like a purple chest on the desk. And then Martin picks up the amulet, and you can see in the background of the doorway where they're at that Kronk is like peeking through the doorway. And then the camera kind of zooms back up the stairs and to the Hexwell crown into that room. And then around the Hexwell crown, so the Hexwell crown is in this like big orb, and it has like gold branches around it, kind of like those little light ones in the beginning of the trailer. And then there's also these little like circle things all around that are just floating and like shooting lasers. And then there's another orb in the background, but you can't tell what's in it. And then the image fades and it goes back to like the outside view of the Great Illuminary. And then it pans down where the celebrations are continuing. And there's a spotlight that appears on the stage. So nobody's on the stage, just a spotlight. And then it's a scene of Shanzay pushing Martin onto the stage into the spotlight. And he looks super, super, super nervous to be performing. It reminds me of that scene in Coco where before Miguel sings El Coco Loco, El Poco, before Miguel sings El Poco Loco, where he looks super nervous. And so the amber amulet that he just got, he's wearing it around his neck. It starts to glow, and then he raises his arm and like psh, strums a chord, and then the crowd goes wild. So then you see in the crowd, there's Vanellope, who is on top of Wreck-It Ralph's shoulder, and then they're standing next to Venturo, who's standing next to Merlin, and everybody is cheering. There's confetti, there's fireworks. Then it pans up into the sky where you just see fireworks going off, and then the Shimmering Skies logo appears. So that is what set 5 is called, Shimmering Skies. So that is the trailer. And next, let's talk about the products. So that's all they talked about in the Lorecast. And then they had a portion where Ryan, the co-creator, plus 2 other people, they played Ursula Illumineer's quest on easy mode, and they got smoked despite some finagling and bending of rules. And I feel validated because when Brian and I played Illumineer's quest on easy mode, we also got smoked. And we played with the starter decks that came with the set, and I think we're going to try playing it with our own cards to see if we can get a better result, but it was very difficult. Ursula just gets so much ink, and then she didn't even have to pay ink to play. She just gets to play everything. I feel like I sound very whiny, but it's true. So that is all for this Lorecast. I think a lot of people were hoping they were going to announce an online client to replace Pixelborn, which they did not. Kind of disappointing. And yeah, thought there was going to be more news, but I'm very excited about the Wreck-It Ralph portion, and hoping there's more Moana stuff since Maui is one of the characters in it. And I assume we're going to get more locations to kind of have that racer synergy. This set is coming out in August. So it comes out, I believe, the weekend after Gen Con, which is the weekend of D23, which is August 8th, I want to say. So that's when it's going to be released for local game stores, and then mass release 2 weeks after that. If you're interested in pre-ordering the cards, I think Best Buy already has pre-orders open for everything except for the playmats. Although I would recommend probably waiting, because I think the local game stores tend to have pre-orders that are cheaper, and you get them around the same time anyways, because the local game stores and don't really let you, they don't send out the stuff or let you pick it If you're buying it from a local game store as a pre-order and you don't live in the area and they need to ship it, they usually don't ship it until the mass release date, which would be about the same time as you would get it from, like, say, Best Buy. So I would say it usually ends up being cheaper to get it from a local game store as a pre-order compared to mass retail. Or you can just get it at your local game store when it releases, then you would be able to get it early. Or other options would be to go to, like, a Disney theme park. Usually they have them in, like, Downtown Disney or Disney Springs. I don't think actually in the theme park. Maybe now they do sell it in the theme park, but historically it's been either at Disney Springs or Downtown Disney. Or Amazon actually also has pre-orders. And what I found out from this past Ursula's return is that if the price changes on Amazon for your pre-order before it ships, they will refund you, like, the difference. So I ordered some on Amazon. I think they were, like, priced around like $140 or something. And then prior to shipping it had actually dropped for a booster box down to like $128. And so they just refunded me the money, which is awesome. And you could also buy on the Disney website, so shop.disney.com, and that they usually go on sale the morning of the local game store release, and they sell out fast. So that is it for me. That was my recap of the Lorecast. I'm very excited about this new set. I think we were thinking that maybe it was going to be, like, very villain heavy because a lot of people were theorizing that it was, like, going to be a Hades thing based on the flavor text of one of his cards. I also think that in the future we might get some Maleficent stuff because all her cards with Diablo are like, keep an eye on the Sea Witch. But Shimmering Skies just seems very, like, positive. So I wonder if we're going to get, like, this chapter of just, like, more heroes and stuff, and then maybe the next set will be, like, all villains. I don't know, because this is gonna be set 5 is gonna be, like, since they release 4 sets per year, it's gonna be like the first new round of cards, I guess, after, like, 1 full year. So a lot of people thought they were going to be naming it, like, the second chapter, which I'm glad they didn't, because that would have been very confusing for new people getting in, because it would go first chapter, Floodborn, Inklands, Ursula's Return, second chapter. Doesn't make sense. And yeah, so maybe I think first chapter was very positive because it was new with heroes and stuff. And so maybe this one is the same. And then second chapter maybe different. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, that's it. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover. So upcoming, I will be doing that video about Emperor's New Groove. And as always, keep shuffling. Hopefully you don't end up with a whole handful of non-inkables like me. All right, bye.